morning, students. Today we are going to start our next topic, and our next topic is muscle tissues. So far in the previous lectures, we have studied about the different types of epithelial tissues, connective tissues, about their location, structure, and the various types of functions that they perform in our body or the body of animals. So in today's lecture, I am going to tell you in detail about the muscle tissues. As you all know, students, muscles are always associated with bones and they play a significant role in the movement of our bones. So here, what are these muscles actually? So these muscles is made up of long cylindrical fibers which are arranged in a parallel fashion, and these fibers, they are in turn made up of very minute microfibrils which are known as myofibrils in case of muscles. So these muscle cells are very special because they have the ability to contract, that means to shorten their length when required, and they can also have the ability to relax, that is they regain themselves in the uncontracted state. So these muscles are very much important because these muscles helps our body to move or to adjust itself when there are certain changes in our habitat or our environment. These muscles maintain the various postures and the positions of our body parts. These muscles are also responsible for various kind of movements that our body performing every day. So all of these muscles are generally like a similar type of cell, just like a cell. A cell has a plasma membrane. So here in case of muscles, these muscles also have a plasma membrane. And the plasma membrane of the muscle fiber is known as sarcolemma. So as in a common cell, a cytoplasm is present. So here in the muscles also, a cytoplasm is present, but this cytoplasm is known as a sarcoplasm. The endoplasmic reticulum that is present inside the muscle fiber is known as sarcoplasmic reticulum. This muscle fiber is actually in the form of a syncytium. There are so many nuclei that are suspended in a common cytoplasm, and there is no wall around the nucleus. So these muscles are divided into three broad categories on the basis of their structure and the function they perform. The first type of muscles are known as the stated muscle tissues. The stated muscle tissues are also known as the skeletal muscles, and their another name is the voluntary muscles because they can perform movements according to our will. The second diagram is of the smooth muscle fibers. These are known as the smooth muscles or unstated muscles because no more striations are present on the surface of these muscle cells. So these muscle cells are also known as involuntary muscles because they are not performing movements according to our will. The third category is of the specialized type of muscles which are known as the cardiac muscles. As the name itself indicates, these cardiac muscles, they are generally present in the heart and they are responsible for covering the whole heart of our body. And in this way, these cardiac muscles also have the ability to contract and to relax. So as a result, whenever our heart receives signals from the sinoatrial node or from the AV node, because of the presence of this cardiac musculature, our various auricles and ventricles of the heart contract and relax in a proper manner. Okay, student, I am going to take the first type of muscles, and that is the skeletal muscles. As I have already told you that these skeletal muscles are also known as the striated muscles because of the presence of so many striations or designs present on their surface. These striations are actually the special type of dark and light bands that are present in these muscular fibers, and they are made up of special type of proteins which are known as actin and myosin. We will study about this in the chapter of locomotion and movements. Secondly, they are known as the voluntary muscles because they can do movements according to our will. Also, these muscles, they are associated with our skeletal bones and they are responsible for the movement of our skeleton bones. So these muscles, their structure is, what about their structure? So their structure is that these muscles are bundled together in a parallel fashion. For example, bicep muscles of our forelegs. And what is the next thing that is very special about them? That a sheath of the tough connective tissue. It encloses the bundles of these muscle fibers. And these muscle fibers are responsible for various types of body postures and the variety of movements that is performed by our skeletal bones. Second type of muscles are known as the smooth muscles. So children, smooth muscle fibers, as the name itself indicates, these muscles, they lack striations or any kind of characteristic designs present over their surface. And these muscles, according to their structure, they are tapered at both ends. That is, they have tapering ends at their anterior position as well as at their posterior position. They are fusiform in shape. They do not have any kind of striations, I have already discussed. And cell junctions are present in them which hold these muscles together and bundled them in a connective tissue shape. So where these muscles are present in the wall of our internal organs. For example, in the inner wall of our stomach, in the intestine, and the various blood vessels that are present in our body. As I told you, these muscles are involuntary in nature because they cannot perform movements according to your will. So their movements are not directly controlled by you. This is the diagram of the smooth muscle fibers. When you view the slide of the smooth muscle fibers under microscope, then you see that the surface of these muscles are smooth, no striations are present over them. Okay, student, the next one is the cardiac muscle fibers. As I have already discussed, these cardiac muscle fibers are chiefly present in your heart. This tissue has a contractile tissue present and that is present in your heart. So many cell junctions. They fuse the plasma membranes of these cardiac muscles and in this way they are sticked together. So communication junctions are present at the fusion point of their plasma membranes, which allow the ends to contract as a unit. This means when one cell of these muscular bundles, they receive signal for contraction as their plasma membranes are fused. So this signal, it later transfer to the other cells and in this way, whole of the cells, they contract in a similar manner. Though the signal is received by the single cell, but the response is shown by all of the cells because their plasma membranes are fused together. Okay, student, this is the diagram of the cardiac muscles. So here so many cardiac muscles are visible to you. First is the picture when you view the cardiac muscles under the microscope. And in the second diagram, here so many cardiac muscle fibers are shown to you. And all of these cardiac muscle fibers, they have their fused plasma membrane. And cell junctions are present at the fusion point of the plasma membranes. So when one cell receives signal, all of them contract at the same time. Okay, student, I am coming on the next topic and the next topic is neural tissue. As the name itself indicates, another name of the neural tissue is nervous tissue. The term neural tissue, it arises from the neuron. So what is neuron? Neuron are the structural and functional unit of your nervous system. So these neurons are actually the cells which act as the sites where the messages it gets transferred from the main organs where we receive the stimuli to the respective organs of the central nervous system. So there is a network of nerve fibers that is present all over your body and all of these nerve fibers are made up of small units which are known as neurons. So these neurons, they control the various types of responses that are shown by the body of an animal when there are changes in the environment. So as I have told you that a neuron, if we are talking about a typical neuron, then the body of a typical neuron, it consists of a normal cell-like structure. So this is known as the cell body of the neuron. Inside the cell body, the cytoplasm and the nucleus is present as it is visible to you in the diagram. And from this cell body, so many branch-like structure arises. And these branch-like structures, which actually receive the stimuli, and the stimuli may be physical, chemical, or biological. So these branch-like structures are known as the dendrites. When the information in the form of stimuli is received by these dendrites, then this stimuli finally enters in the cytoplasm of the cell body. It diffuses into the cytoplasm and it gets converted in the form of a chemical impulse. So a sort of chemical reaction it takes place inside the cytoplasm of the cell body. As a result, there is movement of ions from one place to another. As the movement of ions takes place, so this chemical impulse, as soon as it enters into the chain-like cells, which are known as axons, which is actually the continuity of the cell body. This chemical impulse finally gets converted into the electrical impulse by the rearrangement of the ions. So this electrical impulse, it passes from one axon to next axon and so on in the form of a relay-like fashion. So as it is visible to you in the diagram, after one axon, there is a gap present. And that gap is actually the junction of meeting of the two axons. And it is known as the node of Ranvier. So here these axons are sometimes covered by a myelin sheath and sometimes myelin sheath is absent over the axon. So those axons which have myelin sheath over it, they are known as the myelinated axons. Whereas those axons which do not have myelinated sheath, they are known as non-myelinated or unmyelinated axons. So what happened? The electrical impulse, it finally propagates from one axon to another axon in a relay-like fashion, and it finally enters into the nerve endings. So nerve endings is actually the posterior part of a neuron, as dendrites are present at the anterior position. So nerve endings are present at the posterior position. Now what happened at the nerve endings? As the tips of these nerve endings are swollen, so when we view under these nerve endings, so many cellular vesicles are present. And these cellular vesicles, they contain special type of chemicals which are known as neurotransmitters. So these neurotransmitters, they capture the information which is in the form of electrical impulse. And when they receive this information, they move towards the plasma membrane of the nerve endings. They get outside from the plasma membrane and enters into a gap-like region which is present between the two neurons, and it is known as the synaptic cleft. So it flowed through the synaptic cleft and finally touches the tips of the dendrites of the next neurons. So these neurons, their dendrites, they receive the information, and these empty vesicles, they return and finally they enters into the nerve endings of the previous neuron again, and the plasma membrane it gets sealed. In this way, the information or the stimuli enters into the dendrites of the next neuron, and the process I have already discussed, it will repeat once again in the same manner. So in this way, the nervous tissue, they send the messages in the form of nerve impulses. They receive the stimuli from the external environment, and this stimuli is later, with the help of neuron, it passes to the different organs of the central nervous system, and on the basis of this nerve impulse which carries the information, the brain, it finally take a decision, and that decision is again passes to the target organs with the help of these neurons. So those neurons which pass the information that is received by the sense organs from the sense organs to the central nervous system, that means brain or spinal cord, they are known as the sensory neurons, and those neurons which finally collect the decision taken by the brain or the spinal cord and send these signals to the target organs. They are known as the motor neurons. Okay, students. So this completes our chapter, that is chapter 7, structural organization in animals. I hope that you people well understand all the types of animal tissues. So first we study about the epithelial tissues, which are of two categories, simple epithelia and compound epithelia. Then we study about the connective tissues, the various type of connective tissues, loose connective tissues, then dense connective tissues. There are two types of dense connective tissues, dense regular, dense irregular, and then we have specialized connective tissue. And today we have studied about two type of tissues, and that is muscular tissues and nervous tissues. So we will study in detail about these tissues more in chapter locomotion and movements. So I hope this is well understand to you, and thank you all for today's lecture. Have a nice